"I know how to help your daughter," said the poor boy to the doctor. What happened next was shocking. Dr. Michael Thompson walked through the halls of Mercy General Hospital in Denver for the 10th time that day, his white coat wrinkled and his glasses fogged from exhaustion. 3 months had passed since his only daughter, Emily, just 8 years old, had completely stopped speaking after the accident that changed their lives forever. That's when he felt a light touch on his arm. Turning around, he saw a thin boy of about 12, wearing a faded t-shirt and worn-out flip-flops. "Doctor, you're the father of the girl in room 312, right?" the boy asked with a firm voice, despite his fragile appearance. Michael stopped immediately, surprised. How did this boy know where his daughter was staying? He was about to call security when the boy continued. "I know how to help your daughter." "How do you know about my daughter? Who are you?" Michael reacted with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "My name is Ethan, doctor. I'm not a patient here, but let's just say I know this place well. And I know your daughter hasn't spoken since what happened to her mother." The doctor froze. That information wasn't public knowledge. Only he, a few doctors on the team, and Emily's school knew the details of her silence. "She's not sick in her body, doctor. She's sick in her soul. And I know that kind of pain," Ethan went on, his brown eyes showing a maturity that didn't match his age. Michael studied the boy more carefully. There was something in his gaze that made him hesitate before dismissing him. Ethan had messy brown hair, sun-tanned skin, and a posture that wavered between childish shyness and surprising determination. "You don't understand, kid. My daughter went through a very specific trauma. She saw things no child should ever see. I'm a doctor. I've tried every treatment. With all due respect, doctor, you've tried to heal her as a doctor. But have you tried as a father?" The question hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Over the last 3 months, he had tirelessly searched for medical answers, consulted specialists, run tests. But when was the last time he simply sat beside Emily without trying to diagnose anything? "How dare you question my methods? I've been a doctor for 15 years, did my residency in pediatrics, specialized in—" "Doctor," Ethan gently interrupted, "I know you're very smart, but sometimes pain doesn't need a degree to be understood. It needs someone who's been through it." Michael was about to scold the boy when the head nurse, Margaret, appeared in the hallway. "Dr. Thompson, is this boy bothering you? Ethan, I've told you before, you can't just wander the halls. This is a hospital, not a playground." "No, Margaret, it's fine." Michael surprised himself by defending the boy. "Ethan, you said you know this kind of pain. What did you mean by that?" The boy glanced at the nurse, then back at the doctor. There was hesitation in his eyes, as if deciding how much he could trust this man in the white coat. "I can tell you, but not here in the hallway. Can your daughter hear me? She doesn't speak, but she hears everything perfectly. Then we should go somewhere else. What I have to say isn't easy to hear." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Michael found himself in an unusual situation. His medical rationality screamed at him to dismiss the boy and get back to work. But there was something in Ethan's sincerity that intrigued him deeply. After 3 months of medical failures, perhaps it was worth hearing a different perspective. "Let's go to the doctor's lounge. But you have 5 minutes to explain how a boy your age can help my daughter." They walked in silence through the white hospital corridors. Ethan seemed to know every corner of that place, quietly greeting some of the cleaning and maintenance staff. Michael noticed the boy was no stranger there, which only heightened his curiosity. In the small room reserved for doctors, Michael sat in one of the plastic chairs while Ethan remained standing, visibly nervous. "Well, Ethan, I'm listening." The boy took a deep breath before beginning. "Doctor, I lost my grandmother 2 years ago. She raised me since I was a baby because my parents, well, they couldn't take care of me. When she passed, I stopped speaking for almost a full year." Michael leaned forward, giving the boy his full attention. "During that time, many people tried to get me to talk. Social workers, psychologists at the shelter, even some doctors. They all had theories, methods, techniques, but nothing worked because they didn't understand one simple thing. I didn't speak because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if I talked about Grandma, she'd be gone for good. As long as I kept the words inside me, she was still with me in some way. Speaking meant accepting she was gone. Michael felt a tightness in his chest. Over the past months, he had interpreted Emily's silence as psychological trauma from the accident's images. But what if it was something deeper? How did you start speaking again? There was a volunteer at the shelter, Mrs. Susan. She never tried to make me talk. She just stayed with me, sat by my side, told stories from her youth, taught me origami. One day she was sick and I got worried. That's when I spoke for the first time in months. Are you okay? Ethan paused for a moment as if reliving the memory. She started crying when she heard me, said she'd waited so long to hear my voice because she knew I'd speak when I was ready, not when others wanted me to. Michael stayed silent, processing the boy's words. He was beginning to understand where Ethan was going with this. Are you suggesting I stop trying to cure my daughter? No, doctor. I'm suggesting you start being present with her. No medical agenda, no goal of making her speak. Just be her father. But Ethan, Emily saw her mother. Michael hesitated, unable to finish the sentence. I know, doctor. Mrs. Margaret told me a little. Emily saw her mother pass in the car accident. Must have been terrible for an 8-year-old. So you understand why I need serious medical methods, not what, doctor? Not affection? Not patience? Not someone who simply accepts her pain without trying to fix it right away? Ethan's words echoed in Michael's mind. When was the last time he had hugged Emily without checking her neurological reflexes? When was the last time he played with her without watching for signs of psychological improvement? Ethan, do you have family? Where do you live? The boy looked away for the first time during their conversation. That's not important right now, doctor. What's important is your daughter. Of course it's important. If you're going to suggest how I should care for Emily, I need to know who you are. Ethan sighed deeply. Since I left the shelter at 10, I've kind of lived around here near the hospital. I do odd jobs for the cleaning crew, help with small things. Mrs. Margaret sometimes gives me food, other staff too. It's not official, but they know I'm a good kid. Michael felt a mix of shock and compassion. That boy who was offering parenting advice was essentially a homeless orphan. Ethan, you can't live like this. There are social programs, shelters. Doctor, I've already been through 3 different shelters. Something always happens. They close or there's no space or... I don't know. Here at the hospital, I feel useful. I help people, no one hurts me. And sometimes I get to help someone the way I want to help your daughter. The revelation struck Michael deeply. That boy, who had lost so much in life, still held on to the ability to want to help others. What kind of inner strength did that take? How do you know Emily's story? Did Margaret tell you? Not exactly. I notice things. I watch people. For the last 3 months, I've seen you coming here every day, always worried, always carrying folders of test results. I've seen your daughter by the window in room 312 a few times, always looking outside but never really seeming to see anything. And I've seen you talking to other doctors, always frustrated because no one can give you an answer that works. Ethan paused before continuing. But what caught my attention the most was that I've never seen the 2 of you together without you running some kind of test or exam on her. I've never seen you just being father and daughter. Michael leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of the observation. It was true. For the last 3 months, every interaction with Emily had been dictated by medical protocols, attempts to trigger reactions, progress evaluations. When was the last time he simply asked if she wanted a hug? Assuming you're right, Ethan, what exactly are you proposing? That you let me spend some time with Emily, not to cure her, but to show her that not everyone who approaches her wants something in return. Sometimes people just want to be there. That's impossible. You're not family. You're not a healthcare professional. The hospital's protocols don't allow... Doctor, with all due respect, have the hospital's protocols worked so far? The question caught Michael off guard. For 3 months, he had strictly followed every protocol, consulted the best specialists, run every possible test. And Emily remained in complete silence. What exactly would you do with her? Nothing special. Maybe teach her origami like Susan taught me. Maybe just sit beside her and let her know I don't expect anything in return, that she can stay silent for as long as she needs, and that's okay. Michael considered the proposal. His medical training screamed against the idea of letting an unknown boy with no professional background near his daughter. But his exhausted father's heart whispered that maybe it was time to try something different. Ethan, even if I considered your proposal, it would be impossible to implement it officially. The hospital has strict visitation rules. Only family and authorized professionals have access to patients. What if it wasn't official? What do you mean? You could bring me in as, I don't know, a distant cousin, a family friend, just for a few hours to see if it works. Michael knew lying about Ethan's identity would be a serious violation of hospital policy. If caught, he could lose his job, his medical license, and worse, Emily might be transferred to another hospital. But looking at that boy who had survived so much abandonment and still held on to hope to help others, Michael felt something he hadn't in months, a flicker of hope. Ethan, I need to think about this. It's a very serious decision with a lot of risks involved. I understand, Doctor, but can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Emily is happy the way she is now? The simple question cut straight to the heart of the matter. Michael thought of his daughter, always quiet, always obedient during exams and procedures, but with empty eyes, as if an essential part of her had left along with her mother. No, she's not happy. Then what do you have to lose by trying something different? At that moment, Dr. Michael Thompson, with all his medical training and years of experience, realized that perhaps the answer to helping his daughter wouldn't come from a medical textbook, but from the heart of a boy who deeply understood what it meant to lose someone special. All right, Ethan, we'll try. But on one condition. If I see any sign that this isn't working or that it's causing Emily more harm, we stop immediately. I agree, Doctor. Thank you for giving me this chance. Don't thank me yet. First, let's see if your theory works in practice. That afternoon, Michael introduced Ethan to Emily as a young friend who wanted to meet her. Ethan entered the room with careful steps, carrying a small paper bag with materials he had gathered from the hospital hallways. Emily sat on the bed, staring out the window with the distant expression that had become her trademark over the past few months. When Ethan approached, she watched him with curiosity but showed no fear or discomfort. Hi, Emily. My name is Ethan. Your dad told me you like sitting here looking out the window. It's a nice view, isn't it? Emily didn't respond but kept her eyes fixed on the boy. Ethan didn't seem bothered by the silence. I like looking out the window too. Sometimes when we look outside, we're really looking inside, you know, trying to understand the things that happen here. He pointed to his own chest. Michael watched the interaction from the corner of the room, struck by Ethan's naturalness. The boy wasn't trying to force a response or reaction. He was simply present. I brought some things. Ethan held up the bag. Paper, colored pens I found in the nurse's station. I thought maybe you'd want to do something with me. But if you don't, that's okay too. I can just sit here. Ethan pulled a chair beside Emily's bed and began taking out colored papers from the bag. With precise, calming movements, he started folding one of them. This is called origami. My grandma taught me. She said every fold in the paper is like a fold life makes in us. Sometimes it hurts a little, but in the end it turns into something beautiful. For the first time in months, Michael saw his daughter show genuine interest in something. Emily leaned slightly forward to better watch Ethan's hands working the paper. This one's going to be a butterfly. Know why? Because a butterfly spends a long time closed up in its cocoon, in the dark, in silence. And when it's ready, it flies out. But it only flies when it's truly ready, not when others think it should. Ethan's words echoed in the room with a meaning that went far beyond a simple origami lesson. Emily looked directly at the boy for the first time, and Michael could have sworn he saw a flicker of understanding in his daughter's eyes. Ethan continued folding the paper in silence, letting Emily watch each movement. When he finished, he showed her the colorful paper butterfly. Do you like it? Want to try making one? Emily hesitantly reached out and touched the paper butterfly. It was the first voluntary gesture she had made toward another person since the accident. "You can keep it," Ethan said, placing the butterfly on the bedside table. "Tomorrow, if your dad says it's okay, I'll come back and teach you how to make one, but only if you want to, all right?" Emily looked at the butterfly, then at Ethan, and finally at her father. Though she hadn't spoken a word, something had shifted in her expression. There was a spark of curiosity that hadn't been there for months. When they left the room, Michael was visibly emotional. "Ethan, I don't know how to thank you. It's been 3 months since I've seen Emily show interest in anything. Doctor, it was just the first day. We can't rush this. A butterfly doesn't leave its cocoon because someone tells it to. It comes out when it's ready." "You're right. But can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Where are you going to sleep tonight?" Ethan hesitated again, as he always did when the subject was his personal situation. "Doctor, that's not your concern. I'll manage." "Ethan, you've given me hope for the first time in 3 months. Of course it's my concern. Where do you usually sleep?" "There's a spot in the back of the hospital, near the laundry room. It's warm because of the machines and no one bothers me." Michael's heart ached. That boy who had shown more wisdom in one afternoon than many adults did in months was sleeping on a hospital floor. "That's not right, Ethan. You're a child. You should be at home, studying, playing." "Doctor, I've tried studying. I've tried having a home. Things don't always work out the way they should. But I've learned I can be happy even when life isn't what I'd like it to be, and I can use my experience to help others." Ethan's maturity was both inspiring and heartbreaking. Michael wondered what kind of suffering it took for a child to develop such wisdom. "Ethan, what if I found you a better place to sleep? A proper foster home where you could study and have a more stable life?" "Doctor, I've been through 3 shelters. Something always happens. They close from lack of funding, or they get overcrowded, or I don't know. Here I feel safe. And now I have a purpose, helping Emily." "But Ethan, doctor, please, let me do this my way. If it works with Emily, then we can talk about other things, okay?" Michael reluctantly nodded. Though every parental instinct in him screamed to protect that boy, he recognized Ethan had the right to make his own choices, no matter how hard they were. "All right, but I want you to know that no matter what happens with Emily, I'd like to help you somehow." "Thank you, Doctor. That means a lot to me." That night, Michael went home for the first time in weeks, without feeling the crushing weight of helplessness. For the first time in 3 months, there was hope. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, Ethan showed up at the hospital at the same time every day, right after lunch. Margaret had questioned Michael about the frequent visits of that distant cousin, but the doctor managed to convince her that Ethan was helping with Emily's recovery. Each day, Ethan brought different materials: colored paper, crayons borrowed from the pediatric wing, small improvised toys made from discarded items. But the most important thing was his constant, expectation-free presence. Emily began to look forward to his visits. Michael noticed that around the time Ethan usually arrived, she would pay more attention to the door, showing positive anticipation for the first time in months. By the second week, Emily made her first origami on her own. Ethan had left paper and a set of illustrated instructions he'd drawn himself. When Michael arrived that morning, he found a small paper rose on his daughter's nightstand. "Emily, did you make this?" he asked, emotional. She nodded, the first active gesture of communication she'd made since the accident. Though she hadn't spoken, she had answered a direct question. Ethan was genuinely surprised to see the rose. "Wow, Emily, it turned out beautiful. You followed the instructions perfectly. It must have been hard because this is one of the most complicated folds I know." Emily smiled for the first time in 3 months, a small smile, almost imperceptible, but a real one. "Do you know what it means when you can make an origami rose?" Ethan continued. "It means you have patience, and patience is the most important thing in the world when we're dealing with hard things." Michael watched the interaction with growing admiration for Ethan. The boy had a natural ability to communicate deep messages through simple metaphors that Emily could understand. By the third week, the first major obstacle arose. Dr. Richard Wilson, head of the pediatrics department, appeared in the room during one of Ethan's visits. "Dr. Michael, I need to speak with you now." Michael knew that tone didn't bode well. He asked Ethan to stay with Emily and followed his boss into the hallway. "Michael, what's going on here? I've received reports that an unknown boy has been visiting your daughter daily. Who is he? How was this visitation authorized?" "Dr. Wilson, he's a distant cousin. He's been a huge help in Emily's recovery process." "Distant cousin? Michael, you don't have cousins. I've known your family for years. And even if you did, daily visitation by unaccompanied minors isn't allowed under hospital policy." Michael found himself in a difficult spot. Lying to Margaret had been one thing, but lying to the department head was far more serious. "Dr. Wilson, I know it seems irregular, but..." "Seems? Michael, it is irregular. This boy isn't registered as a visitor. We don't have authorization from legal guardians. We don't even know who he really is. If something happens, the responsibility falls on us. But he's helping Emily more than any treatment we've tried so far. That doesn't matter. We can't set a precedent. What happens when other parents demand the same kind of unconventional treatment for their children?" Dr. Wilson paused, studying Michael with a stern expression. "Michael, you're an excellent doctor, but lately your decisions have been clouded by emotional involvement with this case. It's understandable, but unacceptable. Starting tomorrow, these visits are suspended." "Dr. Wilson, please, for the first time in 3 months, Emily is showing signs of improvement." She smiled, made eye contact, responded to questions. "Spoken? Well, no, but Michael, your daughter is still in selective mutism. Some origami and smiles don't constitute clinical recovery. We need proven methods, not experiments with street kids." The reference to Ethan as a street kid stung Michael deeply, but he knew he couldn't show it. "What if I take full responsibility for the visits? Sign a waiver?" "No, Michael. The decision is final. And one more thing. If I find out you've continued facilitating these unauthorized visits, I'll have to take more serious disciplinary action." Michael returned to the room with a heavy heart. Ethan and Emily were finishing an origami crane when he entered. "Ethan, I need to talk to you." The boy immediately sensed the trouble from Michael's expression. "I'm going to have to pause the visits for a while, Ethan. The department head found out you're not actually related to Emily, and he's questioning the legality of the situation." Ethan nodded calmly, as if he'd expected this would happen eventually. "I understand, Doctor. It was only a matter of time." "Ethan, I'll try to fix this. Maybe I can get official permission or..." "Doctor, don't worry about me. The important thing is that Emily started to get better. The rest is just red tape." Michael looked at his daughter, who was watching the conversation with growing anxiety. It was clear she understood something was wrong. "Emily, Ethan won't be able to visit you for a few days, but it's not because he doesn't want to. It's just that sometimes adults need to sort out some boring things first, but he'll be back, okay?" Emily looked at Ethan with an expression that broke Michael's heart. It was the first time since the accident that she had shown fear of losing someone, which, ironically, was a sign she was emotionally reconnecting with the world. "Emily," Ethan stepped closer to the bed, "remember the butterfly we made on the first day?" She nodded. "That's right. Sometimes the butterfly needs to stay in its cocoon a little longer, even when it's almost ready to fly. It's not because it doesn't want to, but because sometimes the world outside isn't ready for it yet." Ethan handed Emily a small package wrapped in newspaper. "Inside, there's enough paper for you to make origami while I'm gone, and there's also a drawing with instructions for a new fold. It's tricky, but I know you can do it." Emily took the package, and for the first time since the accident, her eyes filled with tears. Not passive sadness, but an active emotion, someone truly feeling loss. "Hey, don't be sad." Ethan wiped a tear from Emily's face. "Tears are important too. They show we care about something. For a long time, you didn't cry because you didn't care about anything. Now you're crying because you care about me. That's really good." Michael watched the scene with deep emotion. Ethan wasn't just comforting Emily. He was helping her understand that her feelings were valid and important. "I'll miss you both," Ethan said, looking at father and daughter. but I'll still be around the hospital. If you need me for anything urgent, just ask someone to find me." When Ethan left the room, Emily looked at her father with an expression he hadn't seen in months. She was questioning an adult's decision, another sign she was reconnecting with the world around her. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Emily's progress had been interrupted just as it was becoming meaningful. He felt torn between following the hospital's rules and doing what he believed was best for his daughter. The next day, Emily spent all her time making the origami Ethan had left for her, a complex swan that required several sequential steps. Michael was amazed by her focus and patience. When she finished, she showed the swan to her father with a proud smile. It was clear that completing the task had given her a sense of accomplishment, missing for months. "It's beautiful, Emily. Ethan will be so proud when he sees it." For the first time since the visits were suspended, Emily opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. She tried again, visibly frustrated. "Take your time, Emily. There's no rush. When you're ready to talk, the words will come naturally." But Michael noticed something had changed. Emily wanted to speak. Silence was no longer protection. It was becoming a prison. Over the next few days, Michael tried every approach to get official permission for Ethan's visits. He spoke with social workers, looked for legal precedents, even considered hiring Ethan officially as some kind of therapeutic aid. Every attempt hit the same wall. Ethan lacked proper documentation, had no clear legal guardians, and wasn't professionally qualified to work with children in a hospital setting. Meanwhile, Emily regressed significantly. He stopped making origami, went back to spending hours staring out the window without showing interest in anything, and the little communicative progress he had made disappeared. Dr. Richard appeared in the room a week after the visits were suspended. "How's Emily doing, Michael?" "To be honest, not very well. She's regressed since the visits were suspended. That's normal. Any change in routine can cause temporary regression. But in the long run, it's better for her to learn to handle conventional treatment methods." "Dr. Richard, with all due respect, conventional methods didn't work for the first 3 months. The only real progress she made was with Ethan's visits. Michael, you're romanticizing the situation. A boy with no training can't provide proper psychological treatment for a complex case like Emily's." He wasn't providing psychological treatment. He was offering genuine friendship without expectations. "And where is this boy now? Have you managed to contact him to formalize some kind of official support?" Michael hesitated. The truth was, he had searched for Ethan in the hospital corridors several times, but hadn't been able to find him. "I haven't located him yet." "That proves my point, Michael. This boy came out of nowhere, formed a bond with your daughter, and now vanished just as suddenly. That's neither stable nor reliable. Emily needs consistent support, not unstable relationships." Though Michael didn't want to admit it, there was logic in Dr. Richard's argument, but there was also the undeniable fact that Emily had improved with Ethan and worsened without him. "Dr. Richard, can I suggest something? What if we try to find Ethan and offer him some kind of mentorship program? Maybe we could channel his natural talent to help other kids too, but in an official capacity." "Michael, you're dreaming. We can't build hospital programs around a missing boy we've known for 2 weeks." Dr. Richard left the room, leaving Michael more frustrated than ever. It was clear the official approach wasn't going anywhere. That afternoon, Michael decided to look for Ethan himself. He walked every corridor of the hospital, spoke to cleaning and maintenance staff, but no one had seen the boy in days. That's when Margaret approached him. "Dr. Michael, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Margaret. You're looking for Ethan, aren't you?" "I am. Do you know where he might be?" "He showed up here last night, but he was very sick. High fever, coughing. Looked like he hadn't eaten properly in days." Michael felt his heart race. "Where is he now?" "Dorothy from the kitchen took him to her place. She lives near the hospital, said she couldn't leave a sick boy sleeping outside." Margaret wrote Dorothy's address on a piece of paper and handed it to Michael. "Dr. Michael, that boy is special. Over the last few months, he's helped not just Emily, but several other kids here at the hospital. Always quiet, always respectful, never asking for anything in return." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Because you're a doctor, sir. I thought you'd want to turn everything into official procedure, and sometimes good things work best when they're simple. Michael realized there was wisdom in those words that he, in his academic training, had lost sight of. That night, after his shift ended, Michael went to Dorothy's house. It was a small home in a modest neighborhood but well kept, with plants out front and a sense of warmth Michael hadn't felt in a long time. Dorothy, a woman around 60, greeted him with cautious kindness. "You're the doctor Ethan mentioned?" "I am. I came to see how he's doing." "Come in, doctor. He's asleep, but he woke up earlier and asked about the girl, Emily." Michael entered the small room where Ethan was lying on the couch, covered with a colorful blanket. The boy looked noticeably thinner and paler than when they first met. "Ethan, how are you feeling?" "Doctor!" Ethan tried to sit up, but Dorothy gently pushed him back onto the couch. "How's Emily? Is she still making origami?" "Actually, Ethan, she stopped. Ever since you couldn't visit her anymore, she's regressed a lot." Ethan's face filled with worry. "I knew this would happen. She was starting to trust again, to connect, when that connection was suddenly cut off. Ethan, I need to ask you something. Why did you disappear? I looked for you all over the hospital." "Doctor, when you told me visits were suspended, I knew it was only a matter of time before they kicked me out completely. So I decided to leave before that happened. But you got sick." "I slept on the streets for a few days. It's fine. I've been through worse." Dorothy stepped into the conversation. "Dr. Michael, can I give my opinion? This boy has a natural gift for helping hurt children. In just 2 days here at my place, he's already helped 3 neighborhood kids with different problems. He doesn't charge anything, doesn't want anything in return. He just wants to help." "How so?" "There's little Timmy next door, 5 years old, who's been terrified to sleep alone ever since his father left. Ethan taught him origami and told him that whenever he felt scared, he could make an origami and remember there are people who care about him. It worked better than any medicine." Michael looked at Ethan with growing admiration. Even sick and homeless, the boy kept finding ways to help other children. "Ethan, I want to make you an offer. What if I arranged an official place for you to live, a family who could adopt you or at least take you in temporarily?" "Doctor, I've tried that before. It always goes wrong." "But what if this time was different?" Ethan gave Michael a skeptical look. "How would it be different? What if it was with me?" The silence that followed was absolute. Dorothy stopped fluffing the pillows. Ethan's eyes widened, and Michael realized he had just made a proposal that would completely change his life. "Doctor, are you serious?" "I am. Look, Ethan, I've seen how you help Emily, how you understand children in a way I can't, even with all my medical training, and I've also seen that you have nowhere to go. But doctor, you don't even really know me, and I'm just a street kid. I don't know anything about living in a family. Ethan, you just taught me more about being a father to my daughter than any book or expert has in 3 months. If that's not knowing someone, I don't know what is." Dorothy sat in the armchair beside them, visibly moved by the conversation. "Son, when an opportunity like this comes along in life, you can't let it pass." "But Mrs. Dorothy, what if it doesn't work out? What if I do something wrong?" "Ethan," Michael sat on the edge of the couch, "every family makes mistakes. What matters is the willingness to learn and grow, and I believe you have that." "What about Emily? What will she think about suddenly having an older brother?" "Honestly, I think she'll be happy. She was improving so much with your visits. Maybe if you're living with us, she'll feel safer to keep making progress." Ethan fell silent for several minutes, processing the offer. Michael could see the boy wrestling between hope and the fear of being let down again. "Dr. Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you want to do this? It's not just because of Emily, is it?" The question caught Michael off guard. Why did he want to take Ethan in? Was it just gratitude for what the boy had done for Emily? Was it pity for his vulnerable situation? Or was there something deeper? "To be honest, Ethan, I think it's for several reasons. Yes, I'm grateful for what you did for Emily. Yes, it saddens me to know you don't have a family. But also, I think you've taught me a lot about what truly matters in life." "How so?" "Before I met you, I was so focused on curing Emily that I forgot to simply be there for her. You reminded me that sometimes the most powerful medicine is affection without expectations. Ethan smiled for the first time since Michael had arrived at Dorothy's house. And there's something else, Michael continued. Since my wife passed away, our house has felt so empty. Not just physically, but emotionally. I think having you there could help both Emily and me feel like a family again. Dr. Michael, I accept, but on one condition. What? If at any point you regret it, or if things don't work out, promise me you'll be honest? I won't be angry. I've been through this before and survived. But I'd rather know the truth than stay in a home where I'm not truly welcome. Ethan, I promise I'll always be honest with you, and I promise I'll do everything in my power to make it work. Dorothy stood up and hugged them both. Well, it's settled then. Ethan, tomorrow you'll go to your new home. Dr. Michael, you'll soon realize you've received far more than you've given. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, Michael arrived at Mercy General Hospital with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. First, he needed to sort out the legalities of taking Ethan in. Then, he had to find a way to reintegrate Ethan into Emily's routine without breaking hospital rules. To his surprise, Margaret approached him as soon as he arrived. Dr. Michael, Dr. Richard wants to speak with you. He said it's urgent. Michael's heart raced. Had someone found out about his decision to take Ethan in? Would it be an ethical violation to care for a child he'd met in a professional context? Dr. Michael, I need to inform you of something important, Dr. Richard said as soon as Michael entered his office. I received a call from the City Department of Social Services. They're auditing our visitation protocols after an anonymous complaint about irregular visits in the pediatric wing. Michael's stomach dropped. Someone had officially reported Ethan's visits. The audit starts tomorrow. They'll review all visitation records from the last 3 months. Michael, if they discover you facilitated unauthorized visits, the consequences could be severe. I'm talking suspension, possibly even losing your medical license. Dr. Richard, I can explain. No, Michael. Right now, the less I know, the better. But you need to understand the gravity of this. If there's any evidence of irregularities, I'll be forced to take disciplinary action. Michael left his boss's office feeling like the world was collapsing around him. Just when he'd found a possible solution to help Emily and Ethan, everything was at risk of falling apart. He went to find Margaret to get a better grasp of the situation. Margaret, do you have any idea who might have made this complaint? Dr. Michael, I can suspect a few people, but I can't say for sure. What I can tell you is that there are folks in this hospital who don't like it when rules are broken, even if it's to help someone. So what now? If the auditors find out about Ethan's visits, Doctor, can I make a suggestion? What if Ethan showed up with official documentation as an adoptive or foster child? Is that possible? So quickly? If you've already started the foster care process, you might be able to get a temporary order. It wouldn't solve the issue of past visits, but it would make future ones legitimate. Michael realized he needed to drastically speed up Ethan's foster care process, not just for the boy's sake, but to protect Emily from losing someone important in her recovery again. He spent the rest of the day rushing between notary offices, courthouses, and the City Department of Social Services. Fortunately, his reputation as a respected doctor opened several doors that would normally stay closed. By late afternoon, he secured a temporary foster care order. It wasn't full adoption, but it was enough to make Ethan officially part of his family for legal purposes. When he arrived at Dorothy's house to pick up Ethan, he found the boy playing with several neighborhood children. They were all making origami and seemed genuinely happy with the activity. Ethan, I got the paperwork. Officially, as of today, you're my foster son. Ethan dropped the paper he was folding and looked at Michael with a mix of joy and disbelief. You mean, it's real, not just an idea? It's real, Ethan. You have a family now. The neighborhood kids cheered as if the victory were theirs too. Dorothy cried with emotion, and Ethan, for the first time since they'd met, acted his age by jumping for joy like any child would. Dr. Michael, does this mean I can visit Emily again? More than that. It means you'll be real siblings. At that moment, Michael realized he'd made one of the most important decisions of his life. He wasn't just giving Ethan a home. He was gaining a son who could teach both him and Emily about resilience, compassion, and hope. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you. Tomorrow there's going to be an audit at the hospital to investigate the visits you made before. They might ask how you met Emily. What should I say? The truth. That you met me as someone interested in helping kids, that we talked about Emily's situation, and that afterward I decided to foster you officially. Nothing false, just the events presented in the most favorable way. Doctor, Michael, Dad? Ethan hesitated over what to call him. You can call me whatever feels most comfortable, Ethan. There's no rush. Michael, I'll do everything right. I won't cause any trouble for you. Ethan, you won't cause trouble. You'll be part of our family, and families face problems together. The next morning, Michael arrived at the hospital with Ethan. Several people glanced curiously at the boy, who now wore new clothes Michael had bought the night before. Emily, Michael stepped into his daughter's room. I brought you a surprise. Ethan appeared in the doorway carrying a bag with new origami supplies and a shy smile. Hi, Emily. I missed you so much. For the first time since the accident, Emily got out of bed and ran to hug someone. She squeezed Ethan tightly, as if making sure he was real and wouldn't disappear again. Ethan brought new things for you two to do together, Michael said. And there's more. Ethan is your big brother now. Emily looked from her father to Ethan with an expression of confusion and joy mixed together. It's true, Emily, Ethan explained. Your dad took me in. Now we're a real family. Emily tried to speak again. This time, a tiny sound came out, almost inaudible, but undeniably an attempt at a word. What was that, Emily? Michael leaned in. She tried again, looking straight at Ethan. Stay, Ethan finished. Emily, I'm never leaving again, I promise. At that moment, the auditors from the city department entered the room, accompanied by Dr. Richard. Dr. Michael, these are the auditors from the department. They'd like to ask a few questions about visitation protocols. Of course. Michael remained calm. This is Ethan, my foster son, visiting his sister Emily. The auditors observed the natural interaction between the children and took notes. They asked routine questions about visitation authorization, family documentation, and safety protocols. Michael answered everything honestly, presenting the foster care paperwork when requested. Dr. Michael, one of the auditors said, we received a complaint about irregular visits from an unaccompanied minor to this patient. According to our records, there are no current irregularities. Are you aware of any past situations that might have led to this complaint? Yes, Michael took a deep breath. Before Ethan's foster process was finalized, he made a few informal visits. At the time, I was evaluating the possibility of including him in the family and wanted to observe how he interacted with Emily. Were these visits supervised? I was always present or nearby. At no point was Ethan left alone with Emily. And the frequency of these visits? A few times a week for short periods, always as part of the evaluation process for foster care. The auditors exchanged glances and took more notes. Michael's explanation was plausible and technically didn't violate any specific rules, as visits for foster care evaluation were a recognized procedure. Dr. Michael, considering there's now official foster documentation, we see no irregularities in the current situation. As for the past visits, while they didn't follow ideal protocols, the context of family evaluation provides adequate justification. Michael felt enormous relief. Ethan also visibly relaxed. However, the auditor continued, we recommend that in the future all family evaluation processes be communicated in advance to the hospital administration to avoid misunderstandings. Certainly, thank you for the guidance. After the auditors left, Dr. Richard remained in the room. Michael, you surprised me. When I heard about the audit, I thought your career was at risk. But officially fostering the boy was a smart move. It wasn't a move, Dr. Richard. It was the right decision to make. How so? Ethan isn't just someone who helps Emily. He's become part of our family because he brings something special to our lives. Dr. Richard watched Ethan helping Emily with a complex origami, both focused and happy. You know, Michael, maybe you're right. Perhaps sometimes the most effective medicine doesn't come from protocols and procedures, but from genuine human connections. That's exactly it, Dr. Richard. I'm considering proposing a pilot program at the hospital. Young volunteers, properly trained and supervised, to help with the emotional support of pediatric patients. Ethan could be our first official volunteer. The proposal excited Michael. It would mean Ethan could use his natural talent to help other children, officially and with structure. Ethan, what do you think of this idea? Do you think I could do it? I mean, help other kids officially? Ethan, you've already proven you can. The difference is that now you'd be recognized and supported by the hospital. Emily tugged at Ethan's sleeve and pointed to the origami they were making. It was a family of birds, 2 big ones and a small one. Is it our family? Ethan asked. Emily nodded and with visible effort whispered, Fa, my, lie. It was the first clear word Emily had spoken since the accident. Michael was deeply moved, realizing that his daughter had found her voice just as they became a complete family. That's right, Emily. We're a family, Ethan said, hugging the girl. Dr. Richard watched the scene with admiration. Michael, I think you've done much more than welcome a child. You've created a healing environment that goes far beyond conventional medical methods. In the weeks that followed, Emily's recovery accelerated dramatically. With Ethan living at home, she had constant encouragement to communicate. She started with single words, then short phrases, until she gradually regained normal speech. Ethan began his official volunteer work at the hospital, helping other children with emotional struggles, always supervised and following proper protocols, but keeping his natural, pressure-free approach. Dorothy became a constant presence in the new family's life, taking on the role of adoptive grandmother to both Emily and Ethan. Her home remained a gathering place for neighborhood children needing emotional support. 6 months after Ethan and Michael first met, Emily was officially discharged from hospital follow-ups. She hadn't just regained her speech, she had become a joyful, communicative child who honored her mother's memory without being trapped by it. During the final hospital visit, Dr. Richard made an important observation. Michael, you've created something very special here. Emily didn't just recover, she became more resilient than she was before the trauma. And Ethan has developed skills that could benefit hundreds of other children in his lifetime. How is she more resilient? Emily went through a devastating loss, processed it healthily with the right help, and learned that it's possible to form new bonds without betraying old ones. That's a lesson many adults take decades to learn, if they ever do. Michael looked at Emily and Ethan, who were in the corner of the room teaching origami to a newly admitted child. It was impossible not to notice how they radiated a rare mix of emotional maturity and childlike joy. Dr. Richard, can I confess something? Of course. When I first met Ethan, I thought I was doing him a favor. Now I realize I was the one who received the greatest gift. How so? Ethan taught me that being a father isn't about having all the answers or following every rule perfectly. It's about being present, patient, and creating space for people to heal at their own pace. And Emily? What did she learn? She learned it's possible to love new people without forgetting those who are gone. She learned that family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay. That day, when they returned home, Michael watched Ethan and Emily playing in the backyard. Ethan was teaching her how to plant flowers in small clay pots, a new skill he'd learned from Dorothy. Why do you want to plant flowers, Emily? Ethan asked. Because they start small, grow slow, and get pretty when they're ready. Just like us, Emily answered with the particular wisdom children have. What if some don't grow? That's okay. We'll plant more. The important thing is to keep trying. Michael smiled at their conversation. Emily had learned one of life's most important lessons, that growth is a process, that not everything works the first time, but that it's always worth trying again. That year, Ethan became the youngest volunteer in Mercy General Hospital's history, helping dozens of children process emotional trauma through his gentle, pressure-free approach. Emily returned to school and excelled not only academically, but also as an empathetic child who helped struggling classmates. She had learned that her own experience of overcoming hardship could be useful in helping others. Michael rediscovered the balance between being a doctor and a father, applying the lessons of patience and presence that Ethan had taught him to his professional practice. 1 year after their first meeting, they held a small celebration at home. Dorothy baked a cake, some neighborhood children joined in, and they displayed all the origami pieces Emily and Ethan had created throughout the year. "Ethan," Michael said during the celebration, "do you remember what you told me on the first day? That Emily wasn't sick in body but in spirit?" "I do." "You were right. But what I didn't know back then was that my spirit was sick too, and you helped heal both of us." "What do you mean, Dad?" Ethan had naturally started calling Michael Dad after a few months. "I was so focused on being the perfect doctor that I forgot to be a present father. You reminded me that sometimes the most powerful healing is simply loving without conditions." Emily walked over to them and handed them an origami she had secretly made, a house with 3 figures in front. "It's our family in our home," she explained. "Ethan taught me that we can make a new home with the people we choose to love." At that moment, Michael realized he had received far more than he had given. He had offered Gabriel a home, but gained a son. He had sought healing for Emily, but found healing for himself. He had tried to build a family out of necessity, but discovered that the best families are built by choice. Ethan, who had lost everything at a young age, learned that it was possible to rebuild life on a foundation of love and mutual trust. Emily learned that life goes on after loss, and that new loves don't diminish the old ones. And Michael learned that being a father didn't require perfection, only presence. It didn't mean having all the answers, but being willing to search for them together. 2 years later, Ethan became the coordinator of the hospital's youth volunteer program, mentoring other teenagers who wanted to help children in emotional recovery. Emily developed an interest in medicine, inspired by the blend of science and compassion she saw in her father. Michael began giving lectures on humanized medicine at universities, always sharing the story of how a 12-year-old boy taught him more about healing than years of academic training. The family born from pain became a source of hope for many others facing similar challenges. Dorothy moved into a house near theirs, officially taking on the role of grandmother while continuing her informal work, supporting children in the community. In every child Ethan helped at the hospital, in every smile Emily shared at school, in every patient Michael treated with newfound patience and presence, the story kept multiplying. Because sometimes, the greatest transformations begin with someone willing to say, "I know how to help." And other times, we discover that in trying to help others, we receive the greatest help of all. The butterfly had emerged from its cocoon. Not just Emily, but the entire family had learned to fly. End of story. And now, dear listener, tell us, what did you think of this story of resilience and family? Do you believe Ethan made the right choice by reaching out to Dr. Michael? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.